I found out my son was getting married the same moment I realized my bank account was empty. The phone slipped from my hand and landed face down on the kitchen table, right beside my untouched cup of tea. It had already gone cold. I remember staring at the stainless surface. It's the way you stare at something ordinary when your world has just cracked open, and you don't yet know how to react. Tomorrow, he said. He is getting married tomorrow, and my money was already gone. The kitchen clock ticked loudly, each second stretching itself thin. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the distant bark of a neighbor's dog, the sound of my own breathing, shallow and uneven. Everything felt too loud and too quiet at the same time. I picked the phone back up with shaking fingers and looked at the call log, as if maybe I had imagined it. As if maybe my son hadn't just said in a calm, almost cheerful voice, "Mama, I'm getting married tomorrow. I needed the money, so I withdrew it from your account. I'll explain later." Later, that word echoed in my chest like a hollow knock on a closed door. I'm a mother. I have lived long enough to know that children grow up, that they make choices we don't always understand. That love pulls them in directions we can't follow. But nothing prepares you for the moment when your own child treats your life, your sacrifices, like a convenience. I sat down slowly, afraid my knees would give out. The chair creaked under my weight, a sound I'd heard 1,000 times before, but now it felt unfamiliar. The house I had lived in for over 30 years suddenly felt like it didn't belong to me anymore. Just that morning, life had been normal. I had woken up before sunrise like I always do. Old habits cling to you even after retirement. I made my tea the way I like it, strong, with a little ginger. I swept the front step. I watered the plants my late husband had planted with his own hands. The rose bush by the gate still leaned a little to the left, stubborn and imperfect, just like him, my son. Amir was my only child. I raised him in this house. Every corner held a memory of him, his school shoes by the door, his laughter bouncing off the walls, the nights I stayed awake when he had a fever, whispering prayers into the dark. After his father passed, it had just been the two of us. I worked extra hours, saved carefully, skipped new clothes, and skipped holidays. Every rupee I put away had a purpose: security, dignity, and yes, helping my son build his future when the time came. The bank account was in my name, but I had added Amir years ago when his father was still alive, in case something happens. My husband had said, his voice gentle but firm, he should have access. Back then, it felt responsible, loving, logical. I never imagined access would turn into entitlement. Amir had been distant lately, but I told myself it was just life. Work stress, friends, adulthood. He still called once a week, sometimes twice. He still asked how my blood pressure was, whether I was eating properly. He still said, "Take care, Mama," before hanging up. So when the phone rang that afternoon, his name lighting up the screen, I smiled. I wish I could go back and stop myself from answering. "Mama," he said, and there was an energy in his voice I hadn't heard in a long time. Excitement? Nerves? I have news. I expected many things. A new job, a move, even an engagement announcement, but not this. Tomorrow, I whispered, my voice barely working. Married tomorrow. Amir, Beta. Since when? There was a pause. Not a guilty one, just impatient. It all happened fast, he said. We didn't want to make a big deal. That was the first time he used that word. And the money. I asked, my hand already tightening around the edge of the table. Another pause. Longer this time? I needed it, he said simply. The wedding, the arrangements, the gifts. Don't worry, Mama. It's for something good. Something good. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even raise my voice. I asked him one question. Why didn't you ask me? He sighed. Actually sighed. Like I was being difficult. I knew you'd overthink it, he said. This way was easier. Easier? When the call ended, I sat there for a long time, replaying every word, every tone, every silence. I thought about the bank visits where I carefully updated my passbook. I thought about the nights I ate plain rice so he could have meat. I thought about the envelope in my cupboard where I kept my will neat and organized because I believed in doing things properly, slowly. I stood up and walked to the cupboard. My legs felt heavy, like I was moving through water. I took out the bank file, my fingers brushing against the worn edges. I didn't need to go to the bank to know the truth. I already felt it in my bones. The betrayal wasn't just the money. It was the secrecy, the timing, the way he had decided for me without me, as if I was no longer a person, just a resource. Outside, the call to prayer began, soft and familiar. Normally, it brings me peace. That day, it made my eyes burn. I whispered, Ya Allah, not as a complaint, but as a question. How did love turn into this? And who exactly was my son marrying tomorrow? I had a feeling the answer to that question would hurt almost as much as the empty bank account that night. Sleep refused to come. I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling fan as it circled endlessly, its soft worry cutting through the silence. Every few minutes, my mind replayed Amir's voice tomorrow. Mamaz, if saying it enough times would make it make sense. I got up before dawn and performed wudu with cold water that stung my skin. My hands trembled as I prayed. Not for the money, not even for answers. I prayed for steadiness, for wisdom, for the strength not to break before the truth fully revealed itself by morning. I had made a decision. I would go to the bank. The branch was only 3 streets away, a place I had walked into confidently for years. The guard nodded at me the same way he always did. Inside, the air smelled faintly of paper and disinfectant. The hum of ceiling fans mixed with quiet murmurs and the rustle of forms. I waited my turn, clutching my purse to my chest when my number was called. I sat across from a young teller who couldn't have been older than my son. He smiled politely, unaware that he was about to confirm the worst moment of my life. I'd like a statement, I said, keeping my voice calm. He typed for a moment, then paused. His eyes flicked back to the screen. Madame, he said carefully, there was a large withdrawal yesterday. How large? I asked. He turned the screen slightly toward me. Every digit felt like a slap. Years of savings. Emergency money. Funeral money? The fund my husband and I built slowly, brick by brick. Sacrifice by sacrifice, gone, withdrawn in one day, my son. I nodded slowly, thanked the teller, and walked out with my spine straight and my heart in pieces. I refused to cry in that bank. I refused to let strangers witness what felt like the collapse of my motherhood. Outside, the sun was already high, unforgiving and bright. Life went on around rickshaws honking, shopkeepers opening shutters, people laughing at nothing in particular. I went home and sat at the dining table, the same table where Amir once practiced his alphabets, where he used to do homework while I cooked. I ran my fingers over the scratches on the surface. Memories carved into wood. I needed to understand how we got here. Amir hadn't always been secretive. He used to tell me everything about school fights, about the girl he liked in college but was too shy to talk to, about his dreams of a better life. I was strict, yes, but I was fair. I believed in conversation, in guidance, not control. When his father died, Amir was 24. Too young to lose a parent. Too young to carry responsibility. I stepped into both roles without thinking twice. I never remarried. Not because I couldn't, but because my focus became singular. Him. Maybe that was my mistake. Over the past year, changes had crept in quietly. Amir started visiting less. When he did come, he was always checking his phone. He stopped staying for dinner, said he had plans. When I asked questions, he'd smile and say, "Nothing to worry about, Mama." I told myself this was normal. Children grow. Mothers adjust. But now, looking back, the clues lined up like dots. I had refused to connect the unanswered calls, the hurried goodbyes, the new clothes I'd never seen him wear before, the unfamiliar name that once popped up on his phone screen when he thought I wasn't looking. I remembered that day clearly. He had left his phone on the table while washing his hands. It buzzed, lighting up with a message preview. "Did you talk to her yet?" I hadn't read the name. I hadn't wanted to when I teased him lightly. "Who's that?" He picked up the phone too quickly. "Just work," he said. Work doesn't ask questions like that still. I let it go. That afternoon, I called him back. This time, he didn't answer. I left a message, my voice steady but firm. "Amir, we need to talk. Today." Hours passed. Evening shadows stretched across the walls. The azan echoed through the neighborhood again, slower this time, heavier. Finally, my phone rang. "Mama," he said, sounding rushed. "I'm busy right now." "With what?" I asked. "With preparations," he replied, as if that explained everything. "For a wedding I wasn't invited to." I said quietly. There it was. Silence. "I didn't say you weren't invited," he said. "It's just complicated. Complicated enough to take my money without my consent." I asked. Todd's tone changed then. Defensive. Sharp. "You're my mother," he said. "What's yours is mine." Closed my eyes. No child is born believing that. That belief is learned, taught, encouraged. "Who is she?" I asked on another pause. "Her name is Sarah," he said. You don't know her. But something in my chest tightened. I did know that name. Sarah, my old neighbor's daughter. The girl who used to sit in my living room sipping tea, calling me auntie with respect in her voice. The same Sarah who once cried on my shoulder after a bad breakup. The same Sarah who knew my routines. My kindness. My blind spots. My hand went numb around the phone. "You're marrying Sarah?" I whispered. He didn't deny it. "Mama," he said softly now. "Please don't make this difficult." I laughed. Then, not because it was funny, but because something inside me finally snapped into clarity. The money. The secrecy. The rush. This wedding wasn't just sudden. It was strategic. And I was the only one who hadn't been informed as the call ended. I sat in the darkened living room, the weight of realization settling heavy in my chest. This wasn't just a son making a selfish decision. This was a plan. And tomorrow, everyone would know except me. I didn't sleep at all that night. I sat by the window, watching the streetlights flicker and fade as the hours passed. Every now and then, a car would drive by, its headlights briefly illuminating the wall across from me. And I'd imagine Amir inside, it laughing, planning, celebrating while I sat alone in the house that had once been the center of his world by morning. I felt strangely calm, not peaceful, just resolved. I brewed tea. I barely tasted and folded my dupatta carefully. The way my mother taught me when something important was about to happen. I looked at my reflection in the mirror. My face looked older than it had a day ago, but my eyes were steady. I wasn't invited, but I was his mother, and there were some things a mother does not need an invitation for. I called a rickshaw and gave the address I hadn't visited in years, the old community hall near the masjid, where half the neighborhood weddings used to take place. As we drove, memories flooded me. I had attended weddings there, helped decorate the stage, wrapped gifts in shiny paper, whispered blessings into young brides' ears. I wondered if anyone there would recognize me today. The hall was already busy when I arrived. Strings of lights hung across the entrance. A banner with Amir's name and Sarah's name fluttered slightly in the breeze. Seeing his name in bold letters made my chest tighten. Inside, the air smelled of rose water and food. Chairs scraped against the floor. Someone laughed loudly near the stage. Life moved forward, unaware of the quiet storm walking through the door. I stood near the entrance for a moment, unnoticed. Then I saw her. Sarah sat near the front, dressed in soft pastels, her hair neatly styled, her eyes bright with anticipation. She looked beautiful, nervous, happy, and prepared. She glanced up and our eyes met. The smile on her face faltered. Just for a second, that was all I needed. I walked toward her slowly. Each step measured. Conversations hushed around us as people recognized me. Whispers followed. "Isn't that Amir's mother? I thought she lived out of town. Why does she look like that?" Sarah stood up. "Auntie," she said softly, forcing a smile. "You came." "I wasn't invited," I replied. My voice calm enough to surprise even myself. Amir appeared beside her then, his expression frozen somewhere between shock and irritation. "Mama," he said under his breath, "this isn't the time." "When is the time?" I asked, meeting his eyes. "After you've spent every rupee. After the nikah is done. After I've been erased." People were staring now. An uncle coughed uncomfortably. A woman pretended to adjust her dupatta while listening closely. Sarah touched Amir's arm. "Please," she whispered, "let's not do this here." I turned to her. "You've been in my house," I said gently. "You've eaten my food. You've called me auntie. Did you ever think to call me before taking my life savings?" Her face flushed. "I didn't take anything," she said quickly. "That was Amir's decision." I nodded. "And you benefited from it." Amir's jaw tightened. "You're embarrassing me," he said. "That hurt more than the money." "I gave birth to you," I replied quietly. "I've already done the hardest thing. This is nothing." There was a murmur in the crowd now. Someone whispered, "What, money?" Another asked, "What's going on?" I reached into my purse and took out the bank statement. "I'm not here to stop your wedding," I said, raising my voice just enough to be heard. "I'm here to tell the truth." Amir's eyes widened. "Mama, don't." But I did. I told him how the account was in my name, how the money was saved over decades, how it was withdrawn without my knowledge the day before the wedding. I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I simply stated facts. Facts are powerful when spoken calmly. Sarah's parents exchanged looks. Her mother's lips pressed into a thin line. Her father stepped forward. "Is this true?" He asked Amir. Amir opened his mouth, then closed it. "Yes," he said finally. "But it was for our future, without her consent." The man asked. Amir didn't answer. The hall felt heavy now. The earlier joy dimmed by something uncomfortable and unavoidable. I turned to Amir one last time. "I taught you honesty," I said. "I taught you respect. If you can stand here today, wearing these clothes, planning this life, it's because I stood behind you." His eyes flickered. Just for a moment. Then he looked away. "I hope," I continued, "that whatever future you build begins with truth. Because lies have a way of returning, louder than they began." I folded the bank statement and put it back in my purse. "I won't stay," I said. "This is your day." As I walked out, no one stopped me outside. The air felt cooler, lighter, as if I had finally exhaled after holding my breath for years. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew one thing: silence would no longer protect me, and consequences quiet. Dignified consequences were already unfolding behind me. I thought the hardest part would be walking into that wedding uninvited. I was wrong. The hardest part came afterward, when the noise faded. The doors closed, and I returned to a house that felt heavier than it ever had before. I took off my shoes at the door, the same place Amir used to kick his off without thinking. I stood there longer than necessary, staring at the empty hallway, listening to the echo of my own steps as I walked inside. I didn't cry right away. I made myself a simple meal: lentils and rice. I ate slowly, mechanically, like my body knew what to do, even if my heart didn't. Then I washed the dishes, wiped the counter, and folded the towel neatly. Only when I sat down in the living room did the weight finally press in. My phone buzzed. Once, twice. Then again, messages from relatives, from neighbors, from people who had been at the wedding or had already heard what happened. "Is it true? Why didn't Amir tell anyone? Are you okay?" I didn't reply. Instead, I turned my phone face down and looked around the room. My husband's photograph hung on the wall, his eyes kind, his smile steady. I spoke to him softly, as if he could hear me. "I tried," I said. "I really did." The next morning, I went to see a lawyer. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't anger. It was necessity. The office smelled of old books and tea. The lawyer, a middle-aged woman with calm eyes, listened without interrupting as I explained everything. When I finished, she nodded slowly. "You trusted your son," she said. "That's not a crime." She explained my options carefully. Because the account was legally mine, the withdrawal, while possible due to access, could still be challenged, especially given the timing, especially given the lack of consent. I felt tired just listening. I don't want to ruin his life, I said. I just want my dignity back. She looked at me for a long moment. Sometimes, she said gently, holding someone accountable is not cruelty. It's clarity. I filed a formal notice, not a police report, not a public complaint, just a legal demand for explanation and partial recovery. When Amir received it, he came to the house that same evening. He didn't knock, he never used to. He stood in the doorway looking smaller somehow, less certain. The confidence he wore at the wedding had slipped. You went to a lawyer? He asked. Yes, I replied. You humiliated me already, he said. Was that not enough? I looked at him really, looked at him and saw a man who wanted the benefits of adulthood without its responsibilities. You humiliated yourself, I said quietly. I simply stopped protecting you from the truth. He ran a hand through his hair. Sarah's parents are angry. They think I manipulated you. You did, I said. He flinched. For the first time. I saw something else in his eyes. Fear. They're asking questions, he said, about where the money came from. Good, I replied. Questions lead to honesty. He sat down heavily on the couch. I didn't think it would be a big deal, he muttered. You never say no. That sentence stayed with me. I realized then how my silence, my sacrifices, a constant understanding had slowly taught him something dangerous, that my boundaries were flexible, that my love came without limits or consequences. That ends now. I said. He looked up. I will always be your mother, I continued. I will pray for you. I will wish you well, but I will not be taken advantage of. Days passed. The wedding photos circulated online, but the comments were different than usual. No gushing praise. No endless congratulations. People whispered, asked questions. Wondered did Sarah came to see me once? She stood awkwardly at the door, her hands clasped together. I didn't know he took all of it, she said. He told me you had agreed. I studied her face. Maybe she was lying. Maybe she wasn't. Marriage built on half-truths is a heavy burden, I said. I hope you two learn to speak honestly to each other and to yourselves. She nodded, eyes lowered. Over the next few weeks, the lawyer negotiated quietly. A portion of the money was returned. Not all, but enough to restore some security. Enough to make a point that Amir grew distant, then silent, and for the first time in my life, I let him. The house began to feel different, not emptier, but calmer. I rearranged furniture, gave away things I no longer needed. I started attending a small study circle at the masjid. I laughed more than I expected to. One afternoon, as I watered the plants, I realized something surprising. I was no longer waiting for my son to call. Love doesn't disappear, but it does change shape. And sometimes, the bravest thing a mother can do is step back so her child can finally see her as a person, not a possession. Time has a way of softening sharp edges without erasing the scars. Months passed. The seasons shifted quietly, almost politely, as if they didn't want to disturb me. The rose bush by the gate bloomed again, fuller this time. I trimmed it carefully one morning, my hand steady, my thoughts clear. There was something deeply comforting in tending to living things that didn't ask for more than you could give. Amir didn't call Dot at first. I noticed the silence the way you notice a missing tooth with your tongue constantly, involuntarily. Every ring of the phone made my heart jump. Every unfamiliar number stirred a small, foolish hope. Then, slowly, the waiting stopped. I began to fill my days differently. I joined a women's walking group in the early mornings. We didn't talk much at first, just shared nods and quiet smiles as our feet moved in rhythm. Later, stories came, losses, children, disappointments, spoken gently. Without bitterness, I realized I wasn't alone. One afternoon, while folding laundry, I found Amir's old-school sweater at the back of the cupboard. The elbows were worn thin. I held it against my chest for a moment. breathing in the faint scent of detergent and dust. I didn't cry. I folded it neatly and put it in a donation bag. Letting go doesn't always mean forgetting. Sometimes it just means making room. The legal matter settled quietly. The money that was returned went into a new account this time, in my name only. I didn't feel guilty, I felt wise. Then, one evening, my phone rang. His name. I didn't answer right away. I finished what I was doing, washing my hands, drying them slowly, deliberately. When I finally picked up, my voice was calm. Yes, Mama, he said. Just that, no excuses, no explanations. How are you? He asked. I'm well, I replied truthfully. There was a pause, the kind that carries weight. Sarah is pregnant, Kay said. I closed my eyes. Life moves forward whether we're ready or not. That's news, I said carefully. I wanted you to hear it from me, he added. I appreciated that. I really did. I hope she's healthy, I said, and that you're taking care of her. Another pause. I've been thinking a lot, he said. About what you said. About the money, about everything. I waited. I was wrong. He said finally. The words didn't come with drama. No tears. No grand apology, just truth. I don't expect things to go back to how they were, he continued. But I want you to know I understand now. Understanding doesn't erase pain, but it acknowledges it. That's a start. I said. He asked if he could visit sometime. I didn't say yes immediately. I need time, I told him. And boundaries. I understand, he replied. This time I believed him. After the call ended, I sat quietly, letting the moment settle. I felt something warm spread through my chest, not forgiveness yet, but openness. A door unlocked but not flung wide. Weeks later, he came over. He knocked. That mattered more than he knew. We sat across from each other at the dining table. The same table. Older now, scratched, honest. I won't ask for anything, he said. I just wanted to see you. We talked about simple things. Work, weather, the baby. He didn't mention the wedding. I didn't mention the bank. Some wounds don't need to be reopened to heal. As he stood to leave, he hesitated. I should have asked you, he said. For everything. Yes, I replied. You should have. But I also said thank you for saying it now. After he left, I felt tired but not heavy. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about the kind of mother I had been. The kind of mother I was becoming. Love with limits. Care with clarity. Support without self-erasure. In the end, the money was just money. What I gained was something far more valuable. My voice. My dignity. My sense of self. And maybe, just maybe, a chance for a healthier kind of love to grow. As I sit here now, in the quiet of my home, I've learned that motherhood doesn't end when your child grows up, simply changes its language. There was a time I believed love meant endurance, that if I stayed silent, patient, endlessly giving, things would somehow balance themselves. But life taught me a gentler, braver truth. Love without boundaries slowly turns into loss. I didn't stop loving my son. I stopped disappearing for him. That difference saved me. If you're listening to this and carrying a similar weight, maybe from a child, a sibling, a partner, I want you to know this. Standing up for yourself does not make you cruel. It makes you honest. And honesty, even when it hurts, creates room for real healing. Some relationships don't need to be broken. They need to be reshaped with respect, with clarity, with courage. Today, I woke up knowing who I am, not just as a mother, but as a woman who deserves dignity. And if my son learns that lesson too, then perhaps this pain had a purpose after all. So I'll ask you one question. It's the same way I ask myself every day. Would you have stayed silent? Or would you have chosen yourself? If this story touched something in you, share your thoughts in the comments. And if you believe stories like these deserve to be heard, don't forget to support the channel and subscribe so no one feels alone in their quiet battles. Thank you for listening.